I'm joined by one of the best in the game right now. Of course, I'm talking about Tyler Minton, who's worked with the likes of, Max Holloway, Daniel Cormier. The list goes on. This guy is doing some amazing work when it comes to weight cutting and just overall nutrition for UFC athletes. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you?
What's up, buddy? How you doing? Doing great.
I'm doing well. I saw you briefly at UFC 223. I know things were a bit of a whirlwind, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But first, for people who might be watching this and aren't too familiar with your backstory, we just had the Ultimate Fighter premiere on Wednesday, and you were part of the Ultimate Fighter, and I saw you posted that photo the other day. Is it kind of crazy to think where you are now compared to when you were trying out for the Ultimate Fighter in season 19?
Yeah, man. I really several years ago I went to school for nutrition, but and English as well. But my whole purpose for going to school for nutrition was just to improve nutrition in my own life, because my goal was just to be a professional fighter and a gym owner. I own a gym in here in Tennessee, and I really didn't have any goals outside of that. I've always been kind of a one-directional. When I have a goal, I hit that and I kill it. And all I wanted to do was fight. And I had a really successful amateur career. I think all the ones non-listed unless I ended up 9-1 or 10-1. Then I went professional. I think as of now, again, I'm listed and non-listed. I think I'm 8-1, but, really good professional career. That's all I wanted. I went on, made the Ultimate Fighter at a weight class up, but didn't really care. I took it. Didn't go my way, but for a while I thought, my dreams are over. But not really. It just kind of led to other things. I was a really big 170-pound fighter. I was 200 pounds. I would cut to 170, and people started seeing I would do it easily, and they started seeing, that I looked good and felt good at 170, and started asking for my help. And some of those guys, friends of mine, got into the UFC, so I started helping friends out just to help. And then people started contacting me and asking me how much I charged, so I didn't really have a rate. So I decided I should probably think of something and start working on a business with this. So I created a business with the nutrition side of things, started working with a general population as well as professional fighters, UFC, and other weight class athletes. Then, it just kind of blew up. I linked up with George Lockhart, who's always been, he's a big name in the industry and a guy that I've always looked up to and sought out any form of knowledge that was out there, that George had put out. And, we've contacted each other in the past. He actually helped me with a weight cut. And, I teamed up with him, and, we've just kind of blown up since then. I've said it, before, and he says we're the best team in the business.
You really are. I mean, if you look at the client list right now, it's just insane the amount of people that you work with. It's very kind of nutty. Who's your very first client, like when you weren't like establishing as a business? Was it James Krause? I'm trying to remember who it was.
No, it was. I had some guys on the local scene, but as far as that I actually went in and I did a fight camp and a weight cut for was actually Zach Cummings.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And that's how I met James Krause. So I worked with Zach and helped him out. It was his first fight ever at 170. He was just he was nervous and everything. He actually ended up waking up on weight the day before weigh-ins. It was really weird for him especially. So that was my first. Then it led to James Krause, and from there, it just spun off Chris Camozzi, Brian, then Chris Weidman, and just kind of blew up.
That's crazy. And what time frame is this? Like when did you first start working with Zach? If you can go back memory lane here.
I'm not really good at that. I'm going to say 4 years ago. I want to say 4 years ago. It was when he fought. Well, I'm going to say 4 years ago. I'm bad with dates.
No worries. I'll take your word for it. Well, it hasn't. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is that it hasn't been that long. I mean, really, like it's you sort of have really, because I remember when you were working with Chris Camozzi and those guys, sort of on the a few fighters here and there, and I'd hear your name come up, and then we did the interview, and then it seems like right after that, things just sort of blew up with linking up with Lockhart and getting some higher end clients. Were you surprised at how quickly things went?
Yeah, I mean it. I always knew that, I would do whatever it took, and I had the knowledge base and the dedication, but it was really just, man, the deal with Chris Weidman was huge. He had the best weight cut he's ever had. Things went really good. It was just a great weight cut. It was awesome. It was my first experience being with someone that high profile, just dealing with the media obligations and everything there. And, then, once I joined up with George and his partner Dan, it just kind of, it blew up because they already had a lot of clientele, but what they needed was someone else to come in and help. And, I was looking for more clients, and they were looking for, someone like me. So it ended up just being the perfect pair. And we really, like you said, we have almost everybody, every fighter that's working with someone, we're pretty much that someone.
And that Chris Weidman fight, was that UFC 210 when he fought Gegard Mousasi, or was it before that?
Oh, that was that one.
Yeah, because I remember, I think that's the first time I met you, which was because I was at that event. Was at UFC 210, so it's interesting.
Yep, in New York.
Let's talk about UFC 223. A lot to sort of unpack here. I know there's some stuff you probably can't talk about, but let's stick with what we can. First off, so you're working with Khabib, leading up to the fight. Tell me what's going through your head when you find out Tony Ferguson is out and you find out that Max is going to be getting this fight. What's going through your head?
Well, I mean, honestly, the first thing going through my head was what can happen. Like, what's Max weighing? Is this a reasonable thing? I've made it pretty clear on social media and things that I'm friends with Max and I love Max. I've also made it clear that I'm the same way with Khabib. I've brought up on several occasions, that with people, if you have any negative opinion of Islam, you've never met Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's one of the most amazing humans you'll ever meet, and I love the guy. So, for me, it wasn't no emotional response. It was completely, okay, I know Max was injured. I hadn't talked to Max in a while. I knew Max had just come off an injury. I knew Max had just started training back. So was he 100%? And would this even be something that could happen? Because, if they want Max to fight, but Max isn't at a weight where he can make weight, then it's not going to happen, period. Khabib's not going to get a fight because at that time they weren't really looking at other options. So we were told. So, we looked at the numbers. We compared to Max's usual cuts at 145, which are pretty phenomenal. He's a gangster. He cuts weight very well. He's a big, huge 145er, and we determined, he can make the weight. I guess Sean Shelby called and said, let's do it then.
Interesting. And so, I mean, you're already working with Khabib, who, I know he's made weight before, but it's still always something that he has to be really on the ball with. And then you've got Max Holloway on top of this. So, because I know there was a period where you were sort of working with both, of course, leading up to the scales. So what's happening there? How do you divide your time up?
Yeah. So the thing with Khabib that a lot of people have kind of, based off his past with some weight cutting issues or we'll say weigh-in issues. And Khabib said this, and I agree with him. Khabib doesn't really have weight cut issues. He has health issues as far as staying healthy in camp. He's been injured. The times he had issues making weight, it was he got injured during camp and he couldn't train like he needed to. But when it comes to actually doing what it takes to make the weight and dieting, he's actually really good with that. When he works extremely hard. So, his weight was really good at the beginning of the week, nothing to even be concerned whether or not he was going to make weight. So, when Max comes in, it was more just, George was going to be George and the rest of the team, because we have a huge team that we had some guys there that we were training and some other teammates. We're going to be primarily working with Max. That way, I was already there with Khabib. My time was dedicated to Khabib. I would be helping out with the other athletes we had there as well. We had Joanna Jacek, Felice Herrig, Paul Felder, Michael Kessler, Anthony Pettis. We had a huge roster. So, but I was primarily going to be with Khabib. And they were going to pretty much take care of Max with just me kind of giving them the numbers from past weight cuts so we could do the math. And that's one thing that separates us from a lot of nutritionists. We don't just look at it and say, we think, we'll sweat them till they make weight. We use math and science, and we can pretty much tell you at any point, exactly the number you're going to wake up at. On Friday morning, if you wake up at 5 a.m., it's our goal to be able to tell you after the weight cut starts exactly what you'll weigh at 9:30 a.m. I mean, we have it down to an art. So it was just, like I said, it was pretty much just me with Khabib, and they had planned on just being with Max.
And I mean, this has come out, it's public knowledge, so I'm not saying this like a big secret. So I know you were let go of your duties with Khabib. How did that go, and what's sort of the future with you and Khabib at this point?
Yeah, it was really just a little bit of miscommunication that got worked out, no big deal. But like I said, Khabib's weight was really good, so he just kind of decided, his weight's good. It's not really anything to worry about at this point. He had done the work to put in before there. And a little bit of miscommunication goes a really long way. And that's just kind of what happened. And there were some misunderstandings and things that just were blown out of proportion that were later realized and apologized, and everyone's fine with. But just kind of decided at that point that, with the chaos and the everything that was kind of going on, it was better to just kind of work with the rest of that. And then Khabib and them just kind of decided to just finish the week out on their own. But as far as the future relationship, I mean, we're great. A guy probably hugged me 20 times in between, the Tuesday and the actual fight. He's, like I say, he's just a good person.
So after all your fighters make weight, and again, there's all this other stuff going on too with, you got Michael Chiesa out of the fight. Pettis is out of his fight because of the whole Conor McGregor thing. Which, by the way, where were you when all that happened?
I was actually at the hotel.
Oh, okay, so you weren't on a bus or anything? No, okay, that's good. Just making sure. I didn't see any scratches or anything on you, so you seem pretty good. But yeah, so all that happens. Your fighters are off. So all your fighters make weight. What do you do after that? Is it then sort of just getting them back to normal as far as the food and everything? Because I think a lot of people think the work stops, but it doesn't.
No, and that's the thing where I think we really excel at, because we can make sure that your weight cut is just the best weight cut you've ever done in your life. We'll take what you do, and if it's bad, we'll completely change it. But if what you're doing has worked for you, we're going to come in and make it work the absolute best it ever has. Pretty much every fighter that's ever worked with us said they eat more fight week with us than they ever thought they would. We've had a lot of fighters tell us they're eating more fight week than they were eating 6 weeks out from the fight. So that's a big thing. But I really think where we shine is in the post weigh-in rehydration and refueling, and we do it different than anyone does. The IV ban changed the game for a lot of nutritionists and a lot of athletes, and for us it didn't, because we've never done IVs. It was we have a custom process of doing that. If a fighter or a nutritionist orders an IV for his fighter, he's just getting this very generic product and giving them this very generic amount, whereas we do a custom oral rehydration protocol that's designed precisely for that fighter based off of the amount of weight they cut that week. We're putting back the correct amounts of sodium, potassium, and glycogen that they lost that week. So it's completely custom. And that's there's no one else doing that. So I think that is one thing that we do that's just completely just mind blowing to the fighters that do it. Once they do it, they had no idea how much of an importance that was. And we have some fighters that will literally just hire us for that. I mean, they know it's so good, even if their weight cut went well, they'll pay us just to come in and handle the rehydration because it's so awesome. And a lot of fighters, what they want to do, they want to weigh in and just eat whatever they want. They want to drink whatever they want. It's just way bad. You're causing a lot of issues. There's no use making weight if you're not going to do what it takes after and between the weigh-in and the fight to help you perform at the best of your ability. So you could do all this hard training, do everything you can, make weight. Your weight cut can even go great. Everything's smooth compared to what you think. But there are things you can do that many, many fighters do between weigh-ins and the fight that are going to limit your ability to perform. And, that's where we step in and we tell you exactly how to handle we do the shakes for you, the rehydration, and we tell you exactly how to eat and for the remaining 24 hours leading up to the fight.
How are things right now? I know you got a little bit of a break. You're back home, which isn't very common for you. I know leading up to 223, you had other clients as well that you had to do. How is it right now? Just not having to board a plane or anything like that.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's the travel's fun. It's great, but at the same time, it's good to kind of step back and deal with other things. I'm always working. We have remote training clients and things like that. So there's a lot of people. I'm still doing remote nutrition coaching and just general population. And like I said, I own a gym here in Tennessee, so I coach there every chance I get when I'm in town. So I'm never there's never a day off, and that's how I prefer it. I don't really, people ask me what I do for fun. Like, I work. I love all of my jobs. Every job that I have is a job that I genuinely have fun doing. I have some hobbies, but I've yet to find a hobby that's as fun as what I do for a living. So it's awesome. But it's been good. Getting on a regular sleep schedule is always really good for my health. There's things I tell my fighters that they need to do that I have to sacrifice in my own life, because I'm working with them on that. If I'm supposed to eat at 12 o'clock, but Max or Khabib or someone's supposed to eat at 12 o'clock, guess who's not eating at 12 o'clock? Or, if I normally go to bed at 10 p.m. and wake up at 8 a.m., but a fighter needs fed at 11, or, a fighter has to wake up at 7, I'm not getting my bedtime, so it's good to kind of come home and get to recharge myself and think of ways that, make myself better, and think of ways both, business and through research and things like that I can do better when I do have my next job.
Speaking of recharging the batteries, I know one of the most important things for a fighter and for guys like yourself, I'm sure, is recovery. That is something that I don't think gets talked enough about in the sport. And I know one of the things that you're a fan of, like a lot of fighters are, and everyone else, is a CBD oil. It seems to be a little bit. It seems like there's more education on it now. There's always the stigma before of does it have THC and all these other things. And just you personally, how much does CBD oil sort of play a role in your personal life?
Yeah, so with me, man, like we discussed, I was a professional fighter before all this, and anyone who's ever watched me fight, sees that I never had a very finesse style. I took a lot of punches. I was usually the guy who won, but looked worse because I just like to get in there and bang. So with that, you get a lot of head issues. Like I've had chronic migraines for years. From early days, I've probably been dealing with chronic migraines for about 10 years. And I'm talking, I would get a migraine a month easily, if not 2 or 3. And, I've done prescription medication. I've done, other forms of holistic things, essential oils. I've done just meditation, literally anything I could think of. And all I could ever do is mitigate the problem once the migraine occurred. I couldn't really do anything about it. And, I started doing CBD oil just because I heard a lot of fighters were starting to do it. And the research was still fairly new, and it was still trying to break away. And I started taking it, and at the time I wasn't really taking any other supplements. I'm a big fan of, if you're going to try something, you don't need to try it with a bunch of other things. So I started taking it, and I didn't even think about it. Several months go by, and I hadn't even thought about the fact that probably about 5 months had gone by. I didn't even think about the fact that I hadn't had a migraine in months for the first time in years. I don't even think about it. Well, then all of a sudden, I start getting migraines again. Like for about a month, I got 2 or 3 migraines in that month. And in my head, I'm like, what changed? Like, what in the world? Like, what happened that all of a sudden I started having them? And it hit me really hard that for that solid time, I was taking my CBD oil, and here I go off to a fight camp, and I left it at home and didn't get any more.
Gotcha.
So, I was like, well, maybe, I took it because I believed the research, but that's even a little too obvious. So I wasn't sure if I even believed it. So I got some more, started taking it religiously, back on track several times a day like I was before, and same thing, the same kind of results. Migraines went away, and haven't dealt with them since. So it's very clear to me. If you have this and you don't have migraines, you omit this, the migraines come back, you bring it back in, the migraines go away. And again, this is something I've dealt with for 10 years. So, it's something you can't convince me that without a shadow of a doubt, the CBD oil is the factor in making that for the first time in a decade, something that I can, not worry about.
That's great. Yeah, we've heard a lot of benefits. I know King Mo interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. After his sparring, he takes it. He feels great. He used to get headaches all the time after sparring. He says he doesn't get it. So that's really good to hear. Before I let you go here, I know we could be a long. This could be a long answer here, but just sort of Cole's Notes version. What do you got coming up next as far as fighters and upcoming fights?
Yeah, it could be a long answer, but it's one of those I'm not even fully sure. And when I say that, it's because we are getting contacted constantly with new fighters wanting us to come in and take over. It's just fighters we would have never imagined could just call it any given day. Fighters that we absolutely know, like you said, you mentioned we work with Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis, had a fight coming up. We'll be working with him. Max Holloway's looking to get back in there as soon as possible. So we'll be with him. As you know, Daniel Cormier's fighting for the heavyweight title. Just because he doesn't have to cut weight this time, he still values the importance of performance nutrition. So we'll be out there making sure that, that he'll make weight. He's already on weight, but he wants to make sure that he's being fed the absolute best things he can to perform. So we'll be there with him. Then, as the news has broken the last couple of weeks, Megan Anderson's, finally making a jump back in, and not just back to fighting. She's making her UFC debut that everyone's, been really looking forward to against Holly Holm. So we'll be out there with her. Then, there's some other big names on that card that we'll be taking on that at this point we're talking to and figuring out. But I'll tell you, on the Chicago card, we'll probably have about every single big name that you know of.
Wow, that's great. Well, again, Tyler, congratulations on the success over the last couple of years. It's been great to see and well-deserved, obviously. Just remind people where they can find you on social media, any information or any sponsors or anything like that you want to plug. The floor is yours, man.
Yeah, so, the best form and where I post regularly is Instagram. I have the Melee Way, TheMeleeway. I also have Twitter by the same thing. I have a Facebook. Admittedly, I don't use it a whole lot. Working on a website right now that you'll be able to search soon. We're working on a few different things up there. Search my name, it'll pop up in Google. Sponsors have a few different ones. Terphouse, which is the CBD oil that I personally use and prefer just for quality. With anything you're putting in your body, I think it should be the absolute best quality you can have. It's not something, to skimp out on or to take lightly. And that's really the only CBD oil that I trust right now. Then a few supplement people that I work with, and at this point, none of the other ones have a CBD oil that I trust. So